Your words aren't just empty air. They're the foundation of your identity, and your nervous system is listening. Every time you say, "I'm always anxious," or "I'm just bad at boundaries," your brain works to make those statements true. It's time to stop living the script of your past and start intentionally rewriting your future. In this week's episode, we discuss the psychology behind your self-talk and share 5 gentle ways to shift your language from limiting labels to liberating processes. You are not who you were. You are who you are becoming. Hey friends, welcome back, or welcome for the very first time. I'm so grateful you're here in this space with me, choosing yourself, choosing your peace, and choosing a few quiet minutes to slow down and reconnect. However you found this episode, whether someone sent it to you, you stumbled across it, or you've been here week after week, thank you for being part of this community. Today, we're talking about a theme that can literally change your life. It's a simple phrase with a massive impact once you put it into place, and it's so simple. Simple, but you just need consistency. And the phrase is, say your role, play your role. It's about how the words you choose become the foundation of your life, not because of just the words in some magical way that they will work, but because of psychology, identity, and the impact to your nervous system. It's about noticing the story you tell about yourself and learning how to gently rewrite it so you can grow into the life that you actually want. This episode is deep, it's reflective, it's empowering, and it's healing. So let's take our time with it and let it sink in. So let's start with something simple. Every day, without even realizing it, you tell a story about who you are. You tell it through the labels you attach to yourself, the way you describe your habits, the excuses you repeat, the patterns you justify, the things you think are just your personality, the assumptions you make about your limits, what you think you can't do, and the beliefs you inherited from your past. These tiny statements add up. They become a quiet internal script running in the background of your life. You might find yourself saying things like, "I'm always anxious. I don't do well with conflict. I'm the one who holds everything together. I always get hurt. I'm the fixer. I'm not creative. I'm too emotional." And my favorite that makes me want to shake everyone who tells me this is just who I am. And here's what happens. You start living as if those things are absolute truth, even when they're not, even when they're outdated, even when they came from old pain, not your actual inner self or your truth. Your nervous system hears these words. Your brain registers them as your identity. And because, as we've discussed many times before, your brain always makes things right, always wants you to be right. So your life then begins aligning around all those words and identity. And that's where the idea comes in, say your role, play your role. What you repeatedly say becomes the role you end up performing. You speak the script and then you live it. And many times we don't choose most of these early roles. They're shaped by the environment we grew up in. When we were young, maybe you adopted roles to keep yourself safe. You learned patterns based on what your family needed. You adjusted your personality to fit your environment. You developed habits to avoid punishment or conflict. You learned how to be loved or how to avoid rejection. And you got good at reading the room and filling the gaps. Maybe you learned to be the strong one because no one else could be. Maybe the quiet one because speaking up caused problems. The peacemaker because conflict felt dangerous. The overachiever because performance equaled praise. The caretaker because someone had to be the adult, right? The invisible one because being unseen felt safer. The logical one because emotions weren't welcome. And the self-reliant one because no one showed up for you. None of these roles were your fault. They were your survival. They were intelligent adaptations. They made sense at the time. But the role that kept you safe at age 7 might not be the role that helps you thrive at 30, 40, or 60. The problem is you've repeated these roles for so long, they feel like your identity. And that's why changing your language is so powerful, because language is the doorway to a new identity. So let's talk about the why behind this. Why do words matter this much? Why does saying a role eventually make you play it? Well, there's several scientific reasons, but the biggest one is that your brain wants your inner world and your outer behavior to match. If you repeatedly say, I'm anxious, I'm disorganized, I'm bad with boundaries, your brain works hard to make that identity true. It looks for evidence. It highlights moments that match the identity. It filters out anything that contradicts it, so all the good stuff, the times you were not disorganized, the time that you did enforce a boundary, your brain won't highlight that because that is not what you've told it to highlight. Now, this is not self-sabotage, so don't beat yourself up. This is plain old neurobiology. Your brain is not broken. It's how all brains work, but you can change that. Your brain uses a system called RAS, the reticular activating system. It determines what information is worth noticing. It's how when you play that game where you look for a red car on the highway, that's all you see is red cars. Your RAS listens to the language you use and says, okay, this is important, and then starts filtering your experience to match those words. So saying, I'm terrible with people, well, then your RAS highlights awkward moments and minimizes positive interactions. If you instead say, I'm trying to learn healthier communication, then your RAS notice moments of progress instead of those awkward moments. Same person, same situation, different language, different experience of life. When you believe something about yourself, you take actions that reinforce it. If you believe you're the responsible one, you'll overfunction. If you believe you're just too much, you'll shrink. If you believe you're broken, you won't make healthy decisions. If you believe you're unlovable, you'll tolerate less than you deserve. Identity creates behavior, creates outcome, creates identity that is then reinforced. I'll say that again. Identity creates behavior, creates outcome, creates identity that is reinforced. It's a loop, but a loop that can be rewired. Words don't just affect your mind, they affect your physiology as well. When you say, I'm failing, your chest tightens, your breath shortens. But when you say, I'm learning, your shoulders soften and your breath deepens. When you say, I'm a mess, your system activates into fight or flight. But when you say, I'm growing, your system settles into learning. Your body is always listening. What we don't realize is that many of the things you say about yourself, they're not truths, they're habits. You're not always anxious. You're someone whose nervous system learned to stay alert. You're not bad at boundaries. You're someone who was taught that other people's comfort mattered more. You're not incapable of trusting. You're someone who had your trust broken before. And you're not a mess. You're someone who has gone through things, maybe that you never deserved to go through, and you learned coping strategies that kept you sane, that kept you alive. But listen, your identity is not broken, it's layered, and layers can change. This is where gentle, intentional language comes in, not to deny your experience, but to expand it, to learn to rewrite your story and what you tell yourself, not with just fake positivity, but with awareness, truth, and trust. Now, let's be clear, this is not about pretending everything is perfect. This is not about forcing affirmations that you don't believe. It's not about ignoring your trauma or bypassing your healing. It's about choosing words that reflect possibility, that soften your self-judgment, that support your nervous system. They open the door to change. They feel believable, doable, and they feel compassionate. But how do you start? Well, here's 5 gentle ways. First, flip the script. I'm always anxious. Flip it to, I'm learning to feel safer in my body. I'm terrible at boundaries. Flip it to, I'm practicing speaking up for myself. I can't trust anyone. Flip it to, I'm learning to trust the people who feel safe. See the difference? Again, same reality, same situation, but different words and different story. Second, replace identity labels with active processes. Labels freeze you in place, but processes open you up. Maybe you've given yourself a label of, I'm emotional. Change it to the process of, I'm learning how to understand and support my emotions. Take the label, I'm lazy, and change it to a process of, I'm figuring out how to best use my energy in a purposeful way. Labels limit, but processes liberate. Third is to choose believable upgrades. You do not have to jump from I hate myself to I love myself. That leap might be too big for your nervous system, especially if you don't yet believe it. Try, I'm working on treating myself with more love and kindness. That meets you where you are. Fourth is to realize that identity is a direction, not a destination. Try saying, I'm becoming someone who, I'm growing into a person who, I'm learning to be someone who. These phrases are powerful because they give your brain a gentle target instead of an impossible demand. And finally, remember and remind yourself that you're not just one thing. You're not stuck in one identity. You can be strong and soft, healing and hurting, confident and still learning, growing and grieving, capable and tired. You get to hold all of it. You're multi-layered and not just one or the other. So let's take a minute and name some of the roles that you may have outgrown. Roles that once kept you safe, but now keep you small. Maybe roles that you might be ready to release. The role of the overgiver, the role of the fixer, the role of the strong one, the silent one, the role of the one who never needs anything, the role of the peacekeeper, the one who takes responsibility for everyone, the role of the invisible one, and finally, the role that many of us play, the role of the people pleaser, and its opposite, the one who doesn't ask for help. We went over a lot about people pleasing on the episode before this one, so check it out if you want. But you're allowed to outgrow these identities that were built in response to pain, the roles that no longer serve you. You don't have to keep playing a role just because it's familiar, just because it's how you've always been. Get rid of I am who I am, and instead embrace I am who I become. So let's bring this down to earth with some gentle, practical steps that you can start right now, today. When you hear yourself say something limiting, stop, take a breath, and try again. When you hear yourself say, I'm always overwhelmed, stop, breathe, and say, I'm learning how to create more space in my life. When you hear yourself say, I suck at relationships, stop, breathe, and say, I'm practicing a healthier way of connecting. When you hear yourself say, I'm such a mess, stop, breathe, and say, I'm figuring things out little by little. Avoid extreme statements. Avoid self-attacking language. Avoid absolutes like always or never. Use words like learning, practicing, becoming, growing, exploring, noticing, trying, building. These are gentle words. These are healing words that help you grow. Now, this all requires you to be more aware, but with awareness comes change, and with change you can find peace. Now, take a breath, literally. Deep breath in and ask yourself, what new role is quietly calling me? Let me share some new roles you can think of, and you can move in a new way simply by saying one of these to yourself consistently and repeatedly. But today, just pick one simple identity statement that feels supportive and right for you, and say it for the week. I am someone who speaks kindly to myself. I am someone who chooses peace over chaos. I am someone who honors my needs. I am someone who sets boundaries without guilt. I am someone who supports myself emotionally. I am someone who lets life be easier. I am someone who lets go of what hurts. I'm someone who creates space for joy. And I am someone who believes I deserve good things and that a good life starts with me. These are not fantasies. These are identities waiting for permission. Your voice gives that permission. And once you give yourself that permission, once you begin to say these words in your head or out loud, you'll feel it in your body. You'll feel it in your nervous system as it begins to feel safe. When your language softens, your body softens. When your body softens, your life softens. Your relationships shift. You show up with more clarity. You communicate differently, and you tolerate less self-abandonment. Your choices change. You stop choosing things that match your old identity, and you start choosing things that align with who you're becoming. Your self-respect grows. You start treating yourself like someone who deserves care. And spoiler alert, you do deserve care. You build internal trust. When your words and actions begin to match, you trust yourself more deeply. You take more aligned risks, and your growth begins to feel less terrifying and more natural. It becomes your default. Your emotional capacity expands. You have more room for compassion with others, but more importantly, more compassion with yourself. And you start living a life that feels like yours. Because now you're living from intention, not old wounds. You can stop ripping them open, and you can put down the sword. So pick one of those statements, repeat it, and let that guide your choices for the week and see the change that you feel, no matter how small. Pay attention and find those changes. Remember, your brain will show you what you're looking for, so look for those small positive changes and acknowledge them. Say, I handled that better than I used to, or I'm proud of myself, or simply, I noticed a change there. And don't beat yourself up for where you were or why you were. Thank yourself for where you are going and how you're showing up for yourself now. It doesn't matter how long you've had those old roles. What matters is that you see them and you're taking steps to create new roles and a new identity. You can let go of those old roles by acknowledging they were protecting you. So thank yourself for doing what you needed when you needed to. And thank yourself for knowing that you don't need that anymore and that you're choosing a softer, healthier way forward. That is nervous system regulation. That is integrating all your parts, and that is healing. Now, before we close today, I want to invite you into short, quiet reflection. If you're walking, cooking, driving, or just sitting, you can think these questions gently in your mind. No pressure, no rush. Just take a soft breath in and out and ask yourself, what role have I been playing that I don't want to keep playing? Where did that role come from? Has it protected me in the past? Is it protecting me now, or is it limiting me? And if I could whisper a new role for myself, what would it be? What would my life feel like if I grew into that? Let the answers rise without force. And remember, you don't have to know everything right away. You don't have to pick the perfect new role. You don't have to change your entire identity in this one episode. You only have to begin. You just have to start. And what better day than today? Especially as we near the end of the year, what better time to start now, to start a whole new role in 2026? A shift in words becomes a shift in expectations. A shift in expectations becomes a shift in behavior. A shift in behavior becomes a shift in identity, and a shift in identity becomes a shift in life. You become the version of yourself you once believed was out of reach. And it all starts with the words you choose. Say your role, play your role. And if all you can do today is just listen to this, then that's okay. You took a step just by listening, and maybe tomorrow you can take another step. Each step forward, no matter how small, is still a step forward. And I thank you for letting me walk with you. These steps will lead you to the life you are imagining, the life you deserve, the change that will bring you peace, little by little and piece by piece. This podcast is based on my own life experiences. I'm not a therapist, a psychologist, psychiatrist, or any other licensed medical professional. Please share this podcast with anyone you think needs to hear this so that we all move forward, little by little and piece by piece. And thank you, Purple Planet, for sharing your music.